Hey everybody, welcome back to Fit with Gopal. Today I'm joined by Anders Gjellan. Is that how you say your name?
Well, if you want the perfect pronunciation, it's Anders Gjellan in Norwegian, but I don't think I've had a single person ever say it right who isn't from Norway. So Anders Gjellan is usually what they go by. So you could call me that. You could call me Back Guy. You could call me the Backmaster or Lord or whatever. So I have I go by many names. Also my OnlyFans handle, which is Back Guy Lifts. For those who aren't subscribed. But yeah,
Oh, do you actually have an OnlyFans?
no, I don't actually have an OnlyFans. God damn it.
I mean, you never know, right? There are so many influencers. I mean, I'm pretty sure I haven't seen any posts of you promoting your OnlyFans, but maybe it was like a down low, like low key thing that you're promoting.
Yeah, I tend to because there's a lot of stigma in at least in the female side of the fitness community. There's a lot of OnlyFans models and such. So the guys are trying to get in on that because there's a lot of money to be made, of course. So we gotta start our own OnlyFans. But yeah, actually very fun story. Usually when I post like links for either my coaching or sponsors or whatnot on Instagram, they get very few clicks. If I post it and I call the link OnlyFans, it gets like 3,000-4,000% more clicks every time. So it's a great marketing strategy to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? The curiosity aspect of it, like people would be like, "Oh, I wonder what that guy looks like without clothes on."
Oh my god. No, the only guys who think that are probably Greg Doucette and Mike Israel. I
Yeah.
don't think there are a lot of people who would like to see that.
So, talking about Greg Doucette, I mean, we were talking before we started this. Basically, he
Yeah.
gave you a shout out when you kind of like first started out, but not really, right?
Yeah. Back in 2020, which was when my channel was actually starting to blow up, I went very quickly from 30, 40K to 100K on YouTube. And that was around the time that I started also posting my physique. I had a transformation video out there, which did pretty well, got a couple of 100,000 views. And Greg Doucette wanted to make a natty or not video on me, and he did. He said that I looked natural, but that I had great genetics, so I'm going to take the compliment. Thank you, Greg. And yeah, I think that really it didn't exactly push my content out more because my content wasn't centered around my physique or my body. It was centered around memes, being funny, being informational. So I don't think it necessarily helped that much, but it definitely put me like in a spotlight that I wasn't used to. Like, okay, suddenly one of the biggest guys in the fitness scene is making a natty or not video on me. I think that means I'm doing pretty well in that sense. But since then, I've just gone on to do my own thing, creating social media content on Instagram, on TikTok, or not so much TikTok. I just repost stuff that I've already made for other platforms. But YouTube, especially, we're closing in at 600,000 subscribers and trying to do my best to get to 1 million, hopefully, someday, sometime. And that is the big goal, trying to make the best possible impact I can on the fitness and powerlifting strength community and put it on the map.
Yeah, that's great. So let's go back even further. How did you first
Yeah.
get into lifting? And first of all, what do you do? And can you give us a small introduction?
Yeah, so I can start with my lifting journey. I started lifting back in 2013 when I was 13 or 14 years old at the time. I started just doing like at home workouts, like push ups, sit ups, all that good stuff. I did have some old dumbbells, like 5 kg dumbbells that my grandpa had from like probably 70 years ago or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So I had those in my bedroom, and I did like half bicep curls, like only the upper half because I didn't know what a fucking bicep curl was. So I did that. I did lots of push-ups. I did lots of sit-ups. I remember I was doing like sets of over 100 on sit-ups, and just like, oh my god, am I just gonna keep progressing into like oblivion with this stuff? And the same could be done for push-ups. And I wanted to get big because I saw videos of Arnold Schwarzenegger online. Like, oh my god, this guy's pretty huge. How does he train? I want to become like that. And I saw like, okay, he does like bench pressing, he does squats, he does deadlifts, he does like these massive lifts. And I saw like pumping iron, all those good things that everyone who wants to get into lifting have at least at one point experienced or interacted with. So I watched those, and because my grandpa, he was a big contributor into me getting into lifting. He took me to a gym first time in Austria, of all places, because I do go on vacation a lot in Austria. especially in areas that Arnold has been a lot as well. Uh, but yeah, I did go to a gym there for 2 weeks. I had tremendous progress in just 2 weeks, and I felt like, oh my God, this is the best feeling ever. And from there, I just went home. I got myself like a plastic box with a blanket on it, and I started doing bench pressing at home. I think I got up to like 45 or even 50 kilos with a setup that probably shouldn't be. It wasn't safe for work, to be honest.
Mm.
I probably would have injured myself if I went like a couple of kilos heavier, but I I did that, and once I was sufficiently old enough, and my grandpa got home from Austria, he took me to a local gym in Norway, where I started training 2 or 3 times a week, and I met up every day. I benched, I did some machine exercises primarily. Just got stronger, 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 and I realized that I was suddenly a lot stronger than like every guy at school, basically. So it gave me a confidence boost because I was a very introverted guy. I'm kind of autistic in a way, so I had a lot of like good vibes just being in the gym. And from there, it just started piling up. I got stronger, stronger every single year. My training was, although probably horse shit, I don't have a lot of training logs from those time periods. But when I was around 16, when I got into high school, I benched 125, or I was maybe 15. I benched 125 kilos, and by the end of high school, I benched 160 kilos. And by then, I also started competing in my first ever powerlifting meet. We had a very, very small club locally in the town that I live in, and they arranged a couple of meets on a couple of occasions, and I just found it fun to compete, so I did, and that's how I really started doing powerlifting. Because I also saw that I was strong and I wanted to be strong, and the bodybuilding side of things was like, okay, in order to be competitive, you have to starve yourself for long periods of time. You have to have that whole competition set up with dehydration, the tanning, and to be competitive outside of a local stage, you also have to take PEDs, which is something that I'm highly against because I didn't want to do that. I live in Norway, which is probably the strictest country in the world against PEDs, like in terms of jail sentences, like how heavy fines you can get for using it or selling it or whatnot. So I didn't want to be in that community, that environment. And all powerlifting was the open door to actually competing in sports again and doing something that I enjoyed, lifting heavy and being around a great community. And that's really where like the powerlifting aspect of things came in. I've competed nationally a couple of times. I'm not very successful. I was okay as a sub junior, but I'm not very successful anymore. So I'm trying to change that by competing at nationals again this year. But yeah, that's really the lifting side of things. And as for my career, I've done YouTube since around 2018, late 2018, I might add. After I finished high school, I wanted to do something like that. I wanted to post my transformations and such. I commented on a lot of people's videos with my back as my profile picture, and that's how I got the name Back Guy. And I was probably very annoying. I had a couple of comments every day on every video they were always top comments. For whatever reason, I had some inside jokes. I posted them on every single fitness YouTuber that I watched, which were like 4 or 5 guys maybe. And people started taking notice. They watched my stuff, and from there I started making fun compilation videos, primarily memes and compilations of the fitness YouTubers that I watched doing some funny out of context shit. And I took it from there. I started editing more, making the content more of my own. Grew over time, made some memes, made some shorts, and now we're here, like at close to 600,000 subscribers. And today I have my own coaching business, which I use because I also have a 5 year education in exercise science and physiology. And I try to combine my social media with my coaching, trying to spread the word of health, fitness, and strength, most of all, which is what I primarily specialize in. And yeah, trying to make a great impact on the world, hopefully a lasting one, and trying to make powerlifting into something that people want to watch as well. I don't make a lot of powerlifting content, but my goal is to also become like a decently leveled powerlifter and compete at the highest level, hopefully one day on the international stage.
Hmm. All right. So, when you first got the name Back Guy, did you ever imagine that this thing's gonna get so big to the point now you're almost at like 600K subscribers? Did you ever imagine this was possible?
No, I did absolutely not. I was thrilled when I first actually started when I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I was like super thrilled because that's the point where you can actually start making some money off of the YouTube videos. So now it was like, okay, now it's not only fun, but I can actually sort of have a career on the side of it. So I didn't have to get like a summer job. I could just work with YouTube instead. And I felt like that was it's very comforting to see me do something of my own that was completely my own. And after that, I just felt like, okay, I can grow this very, very well. I could make a lot of videos, make a lot of people happy, and I can make money from it. It's like the best possible feeling in the world. Um, but I did not have the thought that, oh my God, I will become a YouTuber, a massive social media guy. I don't think of myself as that, anyways. But I always thought that, okay, this is just fun. It's just a hobby. It's just something I enjoy doing, and it still is. But now it's come to a point where it has to be more professional. It's actually my full time job, making content and coaching people, and it's pretty much the dream job because I can do it whenever I want to. It's a lot of work, of course. I do work very long hours every single day, and when I take free like time off, I do stuff like this, going on podcasts because I think it's fun. But it's a lot of work. It's definitely not something I thought was going to happen at the beginning, but it's happened, and I'm very thankful that it did.
Yeah. So when you first started, you were doing compilation videos. So,
Yeah.
and even now, most of your videos aren't really about you. So it's more of you're more like a community channel, right? It's covering news about others. Do you ever think you'll make a channel, maybe a different channel, maybe just an Anders channel where you strictly just cover your own personal life?
Actually, I never thought about that because I've done like a weird combination of videos. I went over the compilation phase where I made all these basically videos and meme edits. I also went over like more in an essay style video series, which I'm doing now, which they are very well made. They're doing well on a regular basis. Sometimes they don't hit as well because they're not my usual niche, but they do tend to hit well on YouTube algorithms, and I just genuinely love explaining stuff in my own way because that's what I've been doing like through my education, and that's really what I've been doing all along with these other fitness channels when I made these compilations. That is just okay. This is what this fitness channel is about, explained through my own eyes, my own vision, but I have made a lot of videos about myself actually that also have done well. Like I trained calves every day for 100 days, and I posted that on social media. It got, I think it has like 3.5, maybe 4 million views or something at this point. And I made a lot of memes, a lot of short videos, which also did very well. I have one that has over 10 million on YouTube alone, and that is something that I enjoy doing, and I will keep doing. But in order to become also more of a serious personality on like the fitness scene, I also wanted to make high tier content that is well made, well researched, well documented, well presented, and something that my audience also would want to see, but also something that I could take like people from outside of the fitness community that want to come into the community, and they would see one of my videos and they would think, hey, this is a great place, I want to stay here, and bring more people into fitness training and powerlifting mostly through those.
Hmm. And how important would you say numbers and views are for you?
Well, they're important, but they are not essential because I like doing it regardless of how many views I get. Of course, it's much more rewarding and it's much more sustainable if a video gets 1 million views or a couple of 100,000 views versus getting a couple of 10,000 views. They're definitely important from the incentive of, okay, if I perform well, then I can allow myself to put in more effort into this and make continuously better content over time. But if a video doesn't do as well, I'm still gonna enjoy making it. I'm still gonna have fun doing it. So it's not like that is the end of the world. But if I make something that people obviously don't like, then I will change that because I want to appeal to the masses. I want to have some high quality stuff out there that people actually want to see. I could just make super niche stuff all the time, but I also want people to enjoy my content because that is a big part of it. Having people actually sit through a video that I made from scratch all by myself and have them enjoy that, have them interact with the video, have them interact with the community. Just the overall vibe of having a YouTube community makes me want to create videos for those people, if that makes sense. But of
Yeah.
course, I do now have the coaching, which is more of a one-to-one thing where I work with clients, and that helps me sustain like the financial aspect of things so that I can, okay, I have this coaching, this is how I make my money, this is how I work with people on a one-to-one basis, and the YouTube is like, okay, appeal to the masses, make more people interested, make more people want to follow up on the fitness scene, make more people want to follow up into working out. And a lot of people, I probably received thousands of DMs on social media telling me, hey, this video got me working out, and that is really what I want to achieve because that's all I ever wanted to achieve, to be honest.
Hey, so I know you're enjoying the podcast and I'll let you get back to that, but I had a quick little announcement that I wanted to make. If you're looking to lose fat, build muscle, or get fit, I can help you with that. Currently, I'm providing online and in-person training. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp. Links are in the description. So what are you waiting for? Get fit with Gopal today, and back to the show.
So speaking of that, when I first started, I remember seeing your video and actually your transformation and David Lade's transformation. Those videos really motivated me to keep going. So I guess you have achieved that on a really big scale. And are you actually like, do you ever think, oh, I've influenced so many people to maybe better themselves or even just like get better at working out? Do you ever think of that?
Yeah, I think of that a lot because as my master's was very focused on like the health perspective on the general population, we know how much just training just a little bit impacts like the everyday person's life in a positive way, and just an hour of training every week instead of doing nothing is like insanely beneficial for virtually every metric of health, but also the cognitive aspect, feeling better about yourself, performing better at work. It's like it has so many benefits that every time I get the memo that I helped one person either start working out, work out more, work out better, it feels like a win. It feels like a massive win. It feels like when you hit a PR. It's like the work that I put in actually mattered in a great sense. And that is probably the best like aspect of this whole fitness YouTube, the influencer, if you will, style of things, that you can actually affect people in a positive way. A lot of people, I think, in the community uh, like to affect themselves in a positive way that doesn't necessarily benefit the community. And of course, I'm getting a lot of benefit as well from doing this. But the best benefit for me is to see others actually improve and have a metric of seeing them improve. Like if somebody tells me that, hey, I was 100 kilos and 50% body fat, now I'm 70 kilos and 20% body fat, then I see that as a massive win in my eyes.
Hmm. And going back to the numbers, so let's say a YouTube video is like a 10 out of 10, rather
Yeah.
than a 1 out of 10. Does that ever affect your mood or is that just extra motivation for you to work harder?
It is kind of a two-sided sword, because if a video does well, then I get like very uppity. I get very like I get an adrenaline push, adrenaline rush of seeing myself succeed. Like, oh, I spent all this time and it really pays off, in a good way, and that is probably the best feeling in the world. But if a video doesn't do as well, I think, okay, what did I not do well here? Like, is there something about the topic itself? Is it the video? Am I editing this poorly? Am I explaining it poorly? Or is it just as simple as, oh, the YouTube algorithm doesn't like that I said the F word within the first 3 minutes of the video? Like, I'm always trying to improve, trying to see how I can improve the content and improve the sustainability of the content, because of course it is just like any other business, and I'm not a lot of people who start YouTube can actually sustain a YouTube channel for a long time. It's usually only the guys who do like who are at the upper 1 percentile of fitness YouTubers who can actually sustain it for a long time. So I want to sustain it for as long as I possibly can, and hopefully just keep growing into oblivion and make a overall positive impact. Because I feel like if I have a large YouTube channel, a massive audience, then my messages come across as more serious in a sense. More people are actually gonna uh, take it up. If I say something on social media, people are gonna actually listen to that and take that into their own accounts. And the more people I can reach, which is reflected by the YouTube video quality and how well they perform, the more people I can reach, the better, in my opinion. Because I don't think I have a bad message in any sense. I always think that I have a positive, or at least something positive, to bring to the masses, and if the videos do well, then I feel better.
Now, before you said something about you're a little bit autistic. Could you
Yeah.
expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, well, so I think everyone who does compete in powerlifting is a little bit autistic. I mean, it's a lot of weird people, I can tell you that much. But yeah, I've never really appealed to like the general population in the sense of what I did as a kid. I was always the kid like uh, having weird hobbies. I collected rocks as like a
Mm.
7-year-old or 8-year-old or whatnot. I had like very weird like pets. I had like tarantulas as pets and all that stuff. So I was always like on the outcast side of what was expected from a kid. I was always very smart, but I was also very socially awkward. So I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up, and like getting into the gym community, I found a lot of people who are very similar to that, who had similar interests and similar personalities. And I think it really helps as a scapegoat for people who don't really fit into a lot of areas elsewhere in society. I think everyone can just come to the gym, lift heavy shit, and be respected regardless of how they are as a person, if that makes sense. At least if they're like, at least not an asshole, if that makes sense. But yeah, always had a couple of weird ideas, weird dreams, and always tried making it possible. But living in Norway, I don't think I'm not gonna speak like on a massive social construct thing or whatever. But if you're different in Scandinavia, that gets looked down upon in virtually every sense. It's not like I feel like in the United States, like I'm not gonna look towards the United States as a replicator of what we should do in any way, but back then I remember seeing like, okay, I do stuff differently. What's up with that? And people are not gonna accept that you do things differently in Norway versus somewhere else in the world. It may be celebrated, maybe looked up to instead to be different. And I felt like after I got into like the YouTube fitness scene and doing content creation, that being different suddenly was a good thing. Now you're unique. Now you present something that people elsewhere don't represent. It's just very different. And in the powerlifting community, I think I found a lot of people who have similar thoughts, similar visions, similar um, mental states, if that makes sense. And I think that a lot of people in there are very, very nice people who all grew up like being a bit different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's true in Asia as well. Like a lot of countries, especially in Thailand, I feel like here, if you are different or if you choose a
Yeah,
different path, society doesn't really accept you. They're like, you need
yeah,
to grow up, go to university, get a job, work a 9 to 5, or have your own business, and yeah, get married, grow old, and that's it. That's your life.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I'm.
I think that comes across in very many countries, very many cultures. I think even countries not like Norway are much better at accepting that nowadays. But when I grew up, everything I did that was different was also seen that, oh, you're just different is bad in every sense. It's never
Mm,
good to be different. So always felt that pressure as a kid, and now that I'm finally an adult, I can actually relieve that pressure and be different and do something different without being negatively judged for it all the time.
mm. And talking about Norway, what was your experience in university, in Norway?
Yeah, it was very, very positive. Because after I finished high school, I studied a three-line education at high school, or if you can even call it a education. It's basically a sport line where people who go to high school, they all compete or they want to compete in a certain sport. So we have a lot of more physical activities. We do learn a little bit about anatomy, physiology, very basic stuff. Like 90% of it was wrong, which is something I realized a couple of years later.
Mm,
But yeah, we do have a lot of sport people, people who are athletes or want to become athletes, or have at least been athletes in the past who go down that route. And I felt like afterwards, like I want to know more about the human body. I want to know more about sport performance, but I don't want to study medicine. I don't want to study medicine because that's gonna cause me to take a couple of years to actually finish the necessary education that I need to get into medicine. And I don't want to work with patients. I don't want to have a specialization. I just want to look at top level athletes. I want to train athletes. I want to be on a one-to-one basis. I want to understand how to affect performance in the best positive light, and I want to understand how to affect the general population as a whole and get people healthier through strength training, endurance training, and just lifestyle intervention instead of medical intervention. So I went down to a bachelor's in movement science, human movement science. It's called in Norwegian Bevegelsesvitenskap. And that was a 3-year bachelor. I learned a lot through that. It was a great experience. We had a lot of social things. It was a bit superficial because it covered basically every aspect of health that you could possibly cover, right? So it was very, very wide, not very specific. And with a master's in exercise physiology, I was able to get a lot more specific. I was able to, like, maybe throughout the entire bachelor, I read like 200 studies. Within the master's alone, I probably read 500 studies or more. So you had to learn a lot of these things from scratch, from the raw material that we received, going down a lot deeper into the physiology behind human performance, what drives performance, and also how like medical treatment, medical intervention affects how you should train, how you should potentially eat, and how you could center your training around a certain medical condition, but also how to center your training around an athlete who wants to bring the most elite performance ever. And I found that like the professors that I had, they were top notch. Like some of the best in the world within the field of physiology were professors at my university, which is NTNU, the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And we had a lot of international students as well. We had a lot of doctors and physiotherapists who also did the same education, which was weird because we only had like 20 spots. But yeah, a lot of them were health professionals already, and the professors were awesome. They were really, really good, most of the time at least, at explaining stuff. And I just had an overall great time. I finished my master's. I did my own project, which I think I was the only guy in my class who did their own project, which I recruited my own participants and I made the methods myself, while the others were like, okay, I am now a part of a larger project. They always had like a small part of a larger PhD project, maybe, or something like that. But I made my own thing, and I think I learned a lot from that process, and it also made me into a better, like, not just a physiologist, but a better coach as well, because I had to follow people up on a one-to-one basis. I made plans that they had to follow, had to control everything, had to test them before and after the intervention, and I had to make sure everything was on point, or at least as much as possible. And I would say that if you want to become a physiologist, or at least within something within the line of exercise physiology, then that university, that line is probably one of the best places to study it in the world. Either Norway or in the United States, I think they have the highest level of professors, the highest level of education within the specific field of exercise physiology.
What about the social aspect? Did you make many friends at university, or yeah?
Well, I'm going to be as honest and say that I wasn't very social, or at least not as social as I could be. Because for one, at the master's level, I was like by far the youngest guy there. Like people were in their 30s. I started at 22, so I was like very, very young compared to the other guys, or the other people rather, because there were like 50-50 girls and guys. So I didn't really feel like I fit in. A lot of them were like well-educated people. I remember we had a group project where we had like 4 people in a group, and I was the only person below like age 30, and they made me the group leader because they thought my English was so good. Like that was the reason. And it was pretty weird because a lot of them already had like full-time jobs. Some of them who I knew already from like movement science from the bachelor. I was friends with those people, but I wasn't super social. We didn't go out a lot and do that sort of stuff, especially on the masters, because the first year is like just courses. You have oxygen consumption, you have strength evaluation, neurophysiology, and that sort of stuff. And the second year, you only have the master thesis. And during that time, you don't really see each other at all because you're all focused on just one specific thing that you're doing at separate places across like the town, the city. So I didn't really socialize that much. I met a lot of friends, but most of the people who I met, who are my friends today, who I have like a great connection with, are people I just randomly spoke to at the gym because they were strong. So those are the type of people that are in my like friend group, just people I met at the local gym who also either were interested in or ended up becoming powerlifters themselves. So I think I attract, or at least I speak to, a certain group of people when it comes to like social interactions, all that stuff. And also, I was never really like a big social guy in the terms of like what students usually do is they just go out to drink and that's it. So I was never really like, okay, I don't want to go out and do that stuff. I have better things to do. I have like at least 11 more things to do this night, and like I would rather do that than just go out and drink and just be fucked up for like the next 24 hours anyways. So I wasn't part of a lot of those activities, but if you want to be very social in the community of like studies at university, then there are definitely a lot of availabilities. I would say that.
Yeah. So, talking about being social, when you go out in public, do you ever get recognized in Norway?
Yeah, I do actually. But Norway is, I would say, probably the most introverted country in the world. Like, people don't talk to each other unless they know each other on a personal level. So if you are a celebrity in Norway, then people aren't going to come up to you and bother you all the time. I'm not a celebrity by any means. I look at myself as just a regular guy, but I have had people on very many occasions gone up to me and ask if I was the bad guy or can I take a picture or whatnot. And it's usually, very often, it's international students because they don't have that Norwegian filter. Because Norwegians are like, oh, I know that guy, but I'm not going to go up to him. He probably has better things to attend to. The international students are like, hey, I know that guy. I'm going to go up to him and ask for a picture. And so it's half of the time it's international students at the gym or just outside of the gym. But I also noticed that if I were to go out with a group of friends, maybe we go to a bar or a place where students hang out, then all the Norwegians would suddenly come swarming. Oh my God, it's the bad guy. He is here. And so, if Norwegians are drunk, then they're gonna come up to you. If they're sober, they are not gonna speak to you at all, regardless of whether or not who they like. It could be like thinking of famous people. If Donald Trump walked down the street, Norwegian people wouldn't even look at him. They would be like, okay, that's just a famous guy. Not gonna bother him. Like Norwegian people are very laid back on that sort of stuff. We are so introverted, and for one thing, it's it's good because I don't think I would be bothered that much by having people come up to me, but I could imagine like if you are a top tier celebrity and people would come up to you all the time, then it would be quite bothersome to a certain degree. Like in the United States, celebrities can't go anywhere, but like every local celebrity in Norway can just walk around wherever, basically. So I have had people come up to me on occasion, but I always find it a good interaction. I always like ask them what they're doing, what they're studying, what their names are, and try to be as friendly as possible because, of course, these are people who support me, so why shouldn't I support them? It's usually very quick interaction, very brief. They're usually like, okay, I'm sorry about taking your time. I'll get back to my workout or I'll see you or see you around or whatever. But yeah, they're usually very, very friendly and always have some great interactions. Happens a couple of times every now and again.
Yeah, when I had Shell on, he said the same thing. Like in
Yeah.
Norway, if you're working out at a gym, two people know each other, or the guy knows Shell, he'll probably not even say anything
Yeah.
unless Shell goes up to him and talks to him.
Yeah, pretty much. That is the gist of it. And Kjell is also, like, he would draw eyes regardless of whether or not people knew him because he's so fucking strong. So that's maybe a different story, but, like, people don't come up to you. You can tell, like, okay, somebody obviously is looking in your general direction. They're obviously, like, wondering if they've seen you before or something, but they just don't come up. And that's fine, of course, if they don't want to. But I think in Norway, just stigma of going up to people, like, we don't like being bothersome, if that makes sense. So I think that is that goes across the board for all Norwegians, pretty much.
But I guess we could say the same thing for you as well. You're pretty jacked, so in public, people are probably looking at you and turning their eyes or turning their heads at least.
Well, I wouldn't say that much, but when I train, I am a lot stronger than I look. I like to think, at least. So when I train, you can get a lot of like a lot of people looking in your general direction, like trying to find out how much weight is on the bar, that sort of stuff. But at my gym, the gym that I go to, which is still a student gym, there are a lot of strong people, like genuinely, like the strongest gym I've ever been to. Like we had a couple of people who bench over 200 kilos, and
Oh wow.
that's it, pretty high level stuff. And a couple of guys who deadlift over 300, and it's like it's still like it gets people looking, but it's not like the most uncommon thing in the world to see somebody benching 180 for reps, for example. It's still very impressive and people look, but it's not like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
So do you have body dysmorphia?
I don't think I do. No, I don't. I genuinely don't, because if I did, then I would be cutting right now because I'm probably a bit fatter than I usually am. I am so lucky that I don't live off of my physique at all.
Yeah.
Because my content has nothing to do with how I look. I'm not a photo model by any means, but I do have a contract with Gymshark, so I might be looking a bit better than I think. But I I just don't worry too much about it. I just want to be strong and I want to be healthy. If I get to a certain body fat percentage, and I feel like, oh, bro, you gotta cut now. You look fat. Like, okay, it's fine. I'm gonna cut. But I'm not like, yeah, I look like shit all the time regardless. I think I look great. I go around, you could ask my girlfriend, I go around in every single reflective surface and I flex on virtually everything. Like, I could probably stand in front of a mirror all day just enjoying it because it's like, I put in a lot of work for this and I enjoy the way I look. I don't think I have body dysmorphia, no.
And why do you think that is? Because a lot of people, especially influencers,
Yeah.
have body dysmorphia. Is there something that you've done to avoid body dysmorphia, or is it just you, like, from the start?
Well, it's difficult to say exactly why it happens, but I have done some deep dives into like the psychology behind it. And I think social media, like not just for influencers, but for regular people, plays a massive, massive role because think of it like the only people you see on social media who are fitness influencers are like the top 0.001% of physiques in the world. And you see those people every day. Every time you scroll, you see another one. Oh, scroll, another one, like continuously all the time. And if you only see like the upper, like the super best, super physiques, those physiques you only see in magazines, if you see those every day, all the time when you're on your phone, then it becomes like that is the normal. That should be what every man should look like. And you start to compare that to other people. You start comparing that to yourself. Suddenly, a regular guy who doesn't work out looks like, oh, he has the most disgusting physique I've ever seen. I can't imagine looking like that ever. And you take those insecurities and you put them on yourself. And I think especially for influencers, you know, Alex Eubank and like the social media guys who try to stay lean all year round, like
Yeah.
they start taking PEDs because they don't think their physiques are impressive enough anymore. And that is crazy in my opinion. Like, okay, somebody like Alex Eubank, he actually built his following based off of his physique because it was natural. But even he who looks like super great, still felt like he had to take PEDs to take his physique to the next level because he was afraid that people would look at his physique and think that he was mediocre. So I think body dysmorphia it goes many ways. I think that because you see so many good people on Instagram, people are using the best possible lighting. They're always in a pump. They always have the best possible angle. You're only seeing like something that isn't real, to be honest. You're not going to see somebody looking like that on a one-to-one basis. It never happens. I've never seen somebody look the way that people do on social media posts. Never. It doesn't happen. But people think that it does happen because it's still real. Like it's still a real picture. It's not like a fake picture, a fake physique. It's just that it's set in such a high standard in a way that makes it look a lot better than it would look 99% of the time otherwise. And I don't think it helps that for young guys especially, body dysmorphia hasn't been like a big topic. It has been a big topic, at least from when I grew up, with younger girls, because that was a big issue and it still is. And I'm not going to look down on that, but I think the guys have a lot of catching up to do in terms of actually knowing what is realistic, what can you achieve, compare yourself to yourself instead of others. I think it's very, very twofold because I think that a lot of guys just look at themselves and think, yeah, I'm content, I'm happy, I still want to get better, which is what I think. Like, I'm always happy with what I look like, but I also strive to get better, versus those who are like, I look like shit. I need to get a lot better. I have 1,000 years to catch up if I want to look like my idols or whatnot. And they don't think about that. One of these people have different genetic potentials, but they also might be on PEDs. They are taking pictures in the perfect lighting, as I said. They have like the best possible genetics for their thing. Like, you're not gonna become a fitness model or live off of being a fitness model if you don't have all those things lined up, because there are so many people who have those things lined up. So I think body dysmorphia is a big problem. I try covering it a decent amount myself on social media, at least on YouTube. And I think people are just living too much through social media, to be honest. If you live more in the real world, you're not going to see those people. You're going to think a lot better about yourself. Like, Okay, I can look at social media, I see somebody who benches 50 kilos more than me. Okay, I have never seen somebody do that in the real world ever, like even at a powerlifting competition. Like you're just putting yourself up for failure if you live through social media, is what I think, to be honest. Even though I do social media for a living, I think it should be more realistic, and I think people should be aware of how unrealistic it can be.
Now, you talked about people comparing themselves to their past selves. What if
Yeah.
somebody was super lean before and then they decided, okay, I'm gonna bulk, and then they are comparing themselves to that lean version, but
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I'm fat. So that's when the body dysmorphia comes in. So what do you think people that are in that situation should do?
Well, I think that they should. For one, I'm not a big fan of the bulking scene. Like, I don't think you should put on 30 kilos of body weights within a year,
Hmm.
where 25 of those kilos are fat and water. I think that you should ideally strive for a lean approach where you don't gain as much adipose tissue, don't gain a lot of fat.
Yeah.
So I think bulking on its own is just stupid because you have to cut down at some point if you want to get back to that level of leanness. But I think that the best way to think of it is, okay, why did you bulk in the first place? Like, you're doing it because you want to build more muscle, or because you want to be a lot stronger. You're not doing it because you want to be leaner, then you would obviously not do it. You're doing it because you want to build. And I think if you lose sense of that, like, okay, I don't feel like I've gone any bigger, any stronger, okay, just look at the progressive chart, keep a track of your strength. And that's why I think powerlifting and just strength in general is so important, because it's a much easier way to objectively verify whether or not what you're doing is working. If you're getting stronger, if you're able to lift 100 kilos on bench for one more rep than you did 1 month ago, that is progress, that is measurable. But if you put on weight, a lot of that is body fat, then you're not gonna see how much muscle you gained. And you can't really reliably assess that, even through like a DEXA scan or something like that. They're not reliable or valid in any way. They are horse crap, and I can tell that from experience. And I just think that people should focus a lot more on like the metrics they can control, understand why they do the things that they do, and actually learn whether or not that is the best possible strategy for them specifically. I think most people shouldn't bulk. Like, if you think of bulking as like putting on excessive amounts of fat for a little muscle, then I don't think people should bulk. If you think of bulking as being in a couple of hundred calorie surplus over a long period of time, maybe gaining 10 kilos over 2 years' time or something like that, I think that is a fine approach. I do not advise for heavy bulking. I think that's only ruining people's perception of their own physique. And we do know also that like it's a lot more difficult to cut down, especially if you haven't done it before. So people who are lean and they bulk for the first time, they might never actually get lean again because they never knew how to cut. They just didn't know how to eat in the first place. So there are a lot of issues with it. I don't think people should bulk at all, and I don't think people should focus too much on like how many kilos of body fat am I, how many percent of body fat do I have. Like, focus on getting stronger, like progressive overload, try to improve in the gym, and the gains are a byproduct of that, like, or vice versa. The strength is a byproduct of the gains. And I think that's the best way to think about it. That's why I think powerlifting is a lot healthier than bodybuilding, because you're not focusing exclusively on how you look all the time. You don't really care how you look. You just care about the performance. And I think performance is a lot better than just the visual appeal. Of course, it's never wrong to want to look a certain way. You can always want to strive to be leaner, to look better. Just don't let it get to your head.
Yeah. And I think in the powerlifting community nowadays, strength dysmorphia is also a big thing that's happening, which a lot of people aren't talking about. Like, you see all these people like Elliot Sykes. Are you familiar with him?
Uh, Elliot, what was his name?
Elliot Sykes. He's the 18-year-old who's like crazy strong.
I probably have seen him. I'm not too good with names, to be honest. I
Yeah.
probably have seen him at some point, though.
Yeah, so he's like super strong, and he's only like a sub junior, and he was
Yeah,
getting like junior records as a sub junior. So
yeah,
people see that and they're like, oh, when I was his age, like even older people like Austin Perkins, for example, said, when I was his age, I wasn't lifting this amount.
yeah,
So even somebody like Austin Perkins, who is like the #1 power lifter in the world, like pound for pound, is
yeah,
comparing himself based on strength to somebody who's much younger than him. So I can't even imagine like somebody who is maybe who has like a 400 kilo total who's just starting out, what they're going through, just like comparing themselves to all of these people on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it comes down to the same sort of issues, but strength inflation is a real thing.
Hmm.
It's a real thing in almost every sport, at least sports that are niche and small. Powerlifting has also been a very niche, very small community of athletes. And it's only recently started to gain populations of like in the 100,000s of athletes competing every year. And like it's gonna improve because we have a lot more people, a lot more of those genetic phenoms who just might come in. To maybe 20 years ago, they might have been playing football or something like that instead, but now they're coming into powerlifting because they see that as an opportunity. And you're gonna get a lot more people like that. I think also the guy who won like the 120 kg plus division, the guy from Georgia, he's stronger than Jesus Olivares, and he's also
Yes.
still a junior. And like Regens that is in Denmark, he's a
Yeah.
105 lifter who is probably gonna be like, as he turns his first year as an open level lifter, he's gonna be the world champion. Like these young people are gonna be upcoming. Training methods and training methodologies, the understanding of the physiology behind performance is also improving steadily. We now know a lot better how to train. Back in the day, people would maybe they would search up like an old Russian or East European style program online and get that for free. But today, people will hire a professional coach. Like they will hire somebody in the top level who has been doing it for years, who knows everything down to the last T, and work with that instead. And I can tell you, because I do coach powerlifters at a decently high level, like the difference it makes in performance. You're gonna get maybe 30% stronger in a year's time if you hire a coach versus trying to do everything yourself. So having that availability of coaching as well helps it so that these people can get really, really strong very early on in their career. But I think it's simply an issue of sport inflation. It's gonna happen when a sport grows larger. To be honest, so we're gonna
Yeah.
see more of these genetic phenoms.
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago, the totals that were winning like the 83 class were like below 800, or sorry,
Yeah,
74 class was below 800. And now, if even if you want to come top three, 800 is like the minimum that you need to do in
yeah,
order to just come top three, which is crazy. And I think in the next 5 years, 800 is going to be like, you'll need that just to enter into a world
yeah.
championship. So yeah,
Yeah,
for,
I think that is pretty crazy. I remember watching when Russell Orhe first became the world champion. I remember people thinking like, "Oh, maybe a 10 times bodyweight total is insane. That might be realistic in a couple years' time." Now, a 10 times bodyweight total in the 83 class and 74 class is just nothing. It's just
yeah,
piss. It's not even top three at this point. So it's so crazy. I remember also actually one of the guys who used to train at the powerlifting club that I compete in. He had the world record in deadlifts at 83. I think it was first 326 or something, and then 331. And I, I, I think there are like 7, 8 people at Worlds this year who pulled more than that.
yeah.
Like it's so crazy. The inflation of world records is going through the roof. But it is again because more people are getting into it. We know a lot more about training. We have better coaches. Like there are so many good reasons for it.
Yeah, I'm sure in a few years, the 120s are going to be hitting a 1200 total, which is 10 times their body weight, which is going to be
Yeah,
even more insane.
yeah, it
So,
might be. And we also have like genetic phenoms who you could say like somebody like John Hack. He
mm,
is looked at as a genetic phenom nowadays. In 10 years' time, he might be looked at as like mediocre compared to
yeah,
what's coming. I remember Jamal Browner coming out on stage and like, oh, a 400 kilo deadlift raw is insane, and now we have people pulling 450 like
yeah,
raw on a deadlift bar in the untested federations, mind you, and it's a new level. It's a whole new level.
yeah. So, talking about deadlifts, this weekend, uh, Hafthor is going to attempt the
Yeah,
501 kg deadlift.
yeah.
Do you think he can do it?
I want to say yes because I've seen him peak before. I've seen him peak for the 501 that he pulled with the strapped and suited setup.
Yeah.
Now he's gonna pull 501 just with straps without a suit, and I mean it's on an elephant bar which has a bit more whip, but it's
Yeah.
also like if you mess up something technically, it has a lot more consequence. So I think if he does get it above his knees, then it might look like he has it, but he might still not. So it's very difficult to say. I think he has the strength. If he peaks well and he has a good day on that specific day, I think he will hit it. If he has a bad day on that specific day, I don't think he will. And if he has a mediocre day, I think that he will get very, very, very close. And it's about like 50-50 whether or not he actually gets it. But I do think, I'm optimistic, I think he will get it. And I think it's going to be a tremendous feat. It's going to be like the greatest deadlift in all of history. Like it's not going to be more iconic than his first 501 or nowhere near as iconic as Eddie's 500, but it's definitely going to be like a massive stepping stone. Like, oh my God, a guy deadlifted over half a ton without a suit. That is like nobody else is getting remotely close to that right now. And he's going to break his own world record by like 25 or 26 kilos or whatnot in the same process. If he does it, it's going to be like a massive strength record by every metric imaginable. I hope he does it. I hope he gets it. I don't think for his own sake that he should try to like push the limits of the deadlift a lot further, because he's starting to get like, he's not old by any means, but he's like a veteran lifter now, and he's done a lot of stuff, and I don't think he knows definitely the risks behind it, but I don't think that he should push it further. I think he should just pull that 501 in competition, like a bigger competition, more than just a sanctioned local one. And I think that he should just live off of that, say that I'm the best deadlifter the world has ever seen, and I think he's gonna be the best deadlifter for a long time afterwards as well.
Yeah. I mean, just like as we said, inflation. So you never know. Maybe in like 5 years, somebody else comes in and there's 505.
Yeah, it could be, because we've had so many people trying to strive for that for a long time. I
Yeah.
think Mitchell Hooper might be the
Yes.
best bet for a 505 in the next 5 years' time. But we could have somebody who just comes out of nowhere, who just happens to be an amazing deadlifter. We could have some other guy who just, this strongman was already a 470 deadlifter, but he put on 50 kilos of body weight, and now he's trying to get the 505. Like, we could have that happen as well. But I definitely think that Hofstor's record is going to stay for a long time. I mean, nobody has really done the 500 aside from him, like since 2016. It's been almost 10 years. It's a very, very strong strength record. But I think that just speaks volumes of how far ahead of the game Hofstor, Bjornsson, and Eddie Hall really were at this time. I think that just
Yeah.
speaks volumes.
Yeah, for sure. So now I want to talk about your like, are you gonna compete internationally anytime soon?
If I'm good enough. The thing is, Norway actually is a very good powerlifting nation, and in the 105 and 93 class, we have had a few people sent to Worlds on occasion. And if I want to get there, I have to beat those guys, and that is way easier said than done. I'm now competing, or gonna compete, in the 105. At least during the summer, I will try local meets and qualify for nationals, and then we're gonna try nationals in October. And if I get top 5 at nationals, I'm happy, I'm content. I want to go for a top 3, but even if I get top 3, I'm not good enough to be sent to the European scene. I might be able to go to Nordics, I think, if they even do that for people above junior. They might not actually, but I really want to compete internationally. As per right now, I'm not good enough. But if I get like say a 280 squat, a 210, 220 bench, and a 300 plus deadlift, then I might be good enough. And I'm a bit away from that right now.
What are your lifts now?
Well, my PRs, all time PRs, are a 250 kilo squat, a 192.5 kilo bench, and a 300 deadlift. That was on a deadlift bar. I have done 275 on a stiff bar without issue. So I think I could get up to 290 on the stiff bar right now, realistically. So they're a bit like lower than I would hope for the 105s, but I've had a phase of newbie gains recently because I went up a weight class. So my goal for this year is to take a 260 squat, a 200 bench, and a 310 deadlift ideally. But I also want to do 300 in competition on a stiff bar.
And how far away are you from the competition?
Well, the Norwegian Nationals is in October, so a long time. But
Yeah.
I have to qualify for it because I haven't competed in so many years. So I'm gonna have to do a local meet in the middle of summer. It's not like qualification is an issue. I could just qualify whenever I want to. Just I have to attend the meet. So I'm gonna attend that in I think it's June, early June, and then it's gonna be one straight peaking cycle or training cycle all the way to nationals in October.
Yeah. I hope you can do it because I mean, if you are, what's your body weight right now?
I have a lot of body weight to gain, actually. So I'm,
Okay.
even though my face is pretty fat, like I'm a round ass face guy, my body is still pretty lean at 102 right now.
Mm.
101.5, 102, around there. So I have a couple of kilos left to gain, which means that I could definitely, if I gain like 2 or 3 kilos of muscle, then that is gonna be like a pretty decent performance enhancer. But yeah, I do have some kilos left to gain. I want to fill out the 105. I wanted to stay at 93, but I noticed that because I've been slowly gaining more lean mass over the last like 5 years as well, it gets harder and harder to stay in the 93 class without being so lean that I feel like I lose a lot of power, to be honest.
Mm.
Because my essential body fat percentage for competition is a bit higher than I think a lot of people like Russell Ori, for example. He's very lean
Oh.
in competition. Panache and all those guys, they're all pretty lean. I think mine is a bit higher. Once I get like below 15% body fat, I feel like I don't have anything left to give. Like regardless of how much muscle I have, I feel like when I'm below 15, that is it. I can't do anymore. So right now I'm probably like 21, maybe 22% body fat. Even though I look freaking 50 in the fucking face, but the body's still pretty lean, so I think competing at around 20% body fat would be like ideal.
And how did you? And you watched Sheffield this year, right?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on it?
I love Sheffield. I've watched at least the last two. I didn't watch the first one, but I do think it's a great showing for powerlifting. I think it's a great place to. You get all the best lifters in the world, people from winning worlds, people who've come back and started competing again. Like you have all the best of the best, and they're all like fighting against each other despite the weight classes. Like weight classes don't exist at Sheffield,
Yeah.
and I like that because in a powerlifting meet, if you're gonna watch a full meet, like in a national level meet, international level meet, you're gonna have to sit through a lot of shit that you don't want to watch one or two lifters that you want to watch. And I
Yeah.
think Sheffield does a great job at like overcoming that in the best possible way. Like, okay, these are all the best guys, and they're all competing against each other, and doing that in a way that is presentable. They have like good commentators, they have good stage presence, they have good music, they have a large audience, most of all, and it's like all about breaking world records. It's not like about okay who wins. It's who can break the most world records, and I think that is fucking awesome to have like a world record breaking competition. You don't see that in a lot of sports. You can't go to like a track and field meet, for example, and like, okay, who breaks the world record by the most? If you're lucky, maybe one person across all the 50 events breaks a world record. Like it's very different. It's very high stake. And it's also very high reward because powerlifting hasn't been like a money sport at all. People haven't made anything from powerlifting. They are usually either coaches or they have another job at the side. But at Sheffield, you can actually make some money as well. So there's an extra incentive for those powerlifters to actually peak and do as well as they possibly can. Because hey, I can make like 500,000 Norwegian kroner at least from just one day of competing in what is not even my primary job. Like it's very good. It's very open. I like it. I'm actually going there next year myself with a couple of friends.
Oh.
So I will be attending. Hopefully, I'll be touching a couple of powerlifters. Hopefully inappropriately, but we'll see if they kick me out for that. I'll do my best to get close. I do know a couple of them, like on a one-to-one basis. I could like if I go up to them, they'll know who I am and I know who they are. So I hopefully can get in touch with a couple of guys, but we'll see what happens. And I'm regardless gonna enjoy the show because I think Sheffield is the greatest powerlifting competition to ever live.
So who are the powerlifters that you know?
Well, I can say that I know them through social media because I'm not one who goes out and like meets any of these guys at all.
Okay.
Like I'm very, very fond of staying where I am. I don't travel a lot. But yeah, I feel like I could say I know panache because
Mm.
like we chat about like anime and such through the DMs, and I feel like I can say I know Jesus. If I go up to Jesus, he's gonna know who I am and speak on it. Like guys in the 93 class, Gustav Hedlund. He's of course Swedish, so I can just talk with him in Norwegian as well. So it's not like a big deal. And like a lot of the top guys, really, but not a lot of the girls. Because of course I'm a fucking incel and I make memes for a living, so I don't have a female audience at all. Like genuinely, I think 97% of my YouTube audience is men. But yeah, I feel like I could know a couple of those guys on a one-to-one basis. If I go there and I meet them, I think they will provide a handshake, a picture, and maybe a kiss on the cheek or whatnot. So excited to see if I can meet this. I don't even know who is actually qualified for Sheffield yet. I think
We don't
you
know
have to
yet.
wait. Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't know anything aside from like I guess Kjell and Agatha. Of course, I know Agatha
Yeah.
because we're both JoJo enthusiasts. So
Mm.
we're chatting like shit on DMs and such. But yeah, a couple of guys, a couple of girls that I know, but I'm not a big like traveling person. I never like meet people in person, so it's gonna be
Mm.
really weird to actually see them. But yeah, I'm excited to see them. Excited to see
Yeah.
the whole competition.
I hope you can make a YouTube video out of it. I just want to see the sheer awkwardness of you
Yeah,
going up
yeah,
to.
I'm gonna do that because these powerlifters. I'm an awkward guy. These guys are hella awkward. Like
Yeah.
these guys are super awkward. They can barely speak during an interview. Like it's so fun. So I'm gonna maybe I get a microphone. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll hire one of my friends as a cameraman. We'll see. I'm gonna vlog something at least because there are probably going to be a lot of people there who like I've either interacted with or other powerlifters on social media, maybe some junior world champions or whatnot who are also going. So I'm just gonna do the best that I can, have fun, and interact with as many people as I can.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. So now I want to go back to your YouTube channel. What do you think is the secret to your success?
I don't think you could really call it a secret because it's all about creating content that people want to watch. That is the gist of it. But because I think that I started so niche that I filled a room in the fitness community that has never been filled, and that really started like blowing the channel up. Especially the memes, like you didn't have people in the fitness community making memes at all. It wasn't a thing, pretty much. You had people like doing commentary and such, but you never had people just making meme edits. So I think I really started a trend with that. And I think it's become a lot more popular since then. Now, when a fitness YouTuber goes viral, like Sam Sulek, you'll have like tons of compilations of funny moments or those sort of things. But when I started, you didn't have that at all for none of like the fitness YouTubers. You didn't have funny compilations of any of them. So I think I filled that niche. I think it's going to be a lot tougher to start from that niche in the future, but always find something that you enjoy, something that you can do, and something that is like individual, not something that everyone else does. Why would I scream at the camera and pretend like I'm the parrot from Aladdin when Greg Doucette does it so much better, you know? So I think it's very twofold in that you have to find something that you can stick to, but also something that is different enough or productive enough that provides some info or provides some value that people actually want to see.
So, what is your advice for like up and coming creators who want to be fitness influencers? Or now, there are a lot of people who are like, let's say they are fitness trainers who want to use
Yeah.
social media to like expand their business or something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be pessimistic. I'm gonna say find a different job because this one is fucking mine. don't take my job. But yeah, I think that many people come in with the goal of becoming super famous, but I think that you should have the thought of this is not gonna work out. Like that has to be your baseline because it's so difficult to make it work. Like so many people post content on social media. How many ever get really popular and make it their living? Very, very few. So you have to be realistic, first of all. Go into it with a realistic mindset that, hey, I'm just going to try this and put work into it. Definitely do not half ass it. Just really put some work into it, but do not think that it's going to work out well because other people have done it. It's become very saturated in a sense for fitness coaches, especially. I would say that all the fitness coaches in the world makes like it makes it worse because we have so many people who don't have the competence. Like, at least I like pride myself on having a long line of education to like back it up and a decent amount of experience. But we have a lot of people who are starting up. They don't have any education. They don't have any experience. They just start posting and they hope that people will come in. And we have so many of those that I think you have to have either your product has to be really, really good or your personality has to be really, really good. Something in the lines of that, because it's difficult to make it. It's very saturated. I think being original is one thing, doing something that nobody else is doing, or at least filling a void that you think could be filled, and being consistent is probably the biggest one, because if you post um, 3 times a week versus 1 time a week, and maybe 5 times the next week, and just once every 2 weeks after, the guy who posts more consistently is going to do better long term, regardless. So, consistency, being original, and filling a void where you can actually provide some decent value to not just your audience, but also potentially your future audience, is what I think is the best way to go about it if you want to make a living off of social media and fitness content creation and coaching.
Yeah. I mean, with this podcast, my goal is always to learn something from the
Yeah,
guests. So this podcast has been really insightful with like the content creation
awesome.
side. So thank you so much for that. Lastly, I want to talk about your future goals, and that
Yeah.
can be like powerlifting. I mean, powerlifting, we already know you want to compete internationally, but like content creation wise, and also just like your coaching.
Yeah, so I have a lot of goals. Usually a lot of goals that are very, very ambitious. Because I've always had that. I like to have something to strive towards. If I don't always achieve it, it's fine. But I do have the goal of getting 1 million on YouTube. That is
Mhm.
just an arbitrary goal, because 1 million, having 1 million subscribers doesn't mean anything from having 600,000, but it does have an indirect effect of, okay, I've reached more people with a great message, which is the overall goal of YouTube. And it also makes me like a more reliable and hopefully more trustable person if you have a social media following that is pretty large. Like, I think if, say, a scientist or somebody who has no social media content goes on a podcast and says something, people are not going to take that as seriously as if somebody who has a lot of authority, a lot of following says it. So I think that having those amount of followers is going to help a lot with actually like proving to people that this message is good and it's going to reach more people. But for the coaching aspects, I want to have the best possible service for every client that comes in, regardless. But I want it to be just like not as out of range price wise that nobody can actually get it. I want physiologists to become like a health profession in Norway. I want them to become on the same line of physiotherapists, because I think most of the time they are better at training people and helping people with injuries and injury prevention and lifestyle changes than many other health fields. We are sort of like, think of us as doctors, but instead of prescribing medical intervention, we prescribe physical intervention like through training and dietary management and lifestyle interventions, which doctors still do, but they're not as good at it. They're not as proficient at it, and they don't know anything about nutrition, or at least not based on their general level of education. They don't know anything about training. So I want that to become like a norm in Norway first of all, but then spread across the entire world, because we have an obesity epidemic, we have a lifestyle epidemic, we have a lot of things that could be improved if we had people actually working with people one to one to improve their physical and mental well-beings throughout, just not costing everything. Like, if you're fat or if you have a lifestyle intervention that you need to complete, like you have to start training, you shouldn't go to your doctor at all for this sort of stuff. You should go to somebody who actually understands it a lot better, and together with the doctor come up with the best possible solution. But you shouldn't just go to one specific health profession. I think that the privatizing of coaching is trying to make that possible, because we have a lot of coaches now and people are available to help. We also need to market it to those who really need the help, and we have to find a solution to make it so that coaches can get paid, they can provide a good service, they can actually have a solid educational background, and they can help people in the best possible way, the most amount of people. So I'm trying to build up a team of physiologists. I actually have one more colleague now that I'm just starting to work with right now to take in more clients, so that I have my own clients, and then he can start taking in more clients, get decent level of experience, and he can start working with me after taking a master's, which isn't professionally, like, it's not directed at a profession at all. You can't work as a physiologist, at least in Norway. You don't work as a physiologist. You just work in certain fields in the medical sense. So I want to have a lot of people working with this, a lot of qualified people working with this, and reach as many people as possible. I want to have the biggest and best coaching business in the world. I want to be privatized, but I also want it to be like available for the general public in Norway. And to top it all off, I just want to make a difference. I want to make a positive impact overall, and I want to have fun doing it. And that is pretty much the gist of it. I want people to be healthier. I want people to live longer. I want people to be stronger. I want people to have more endurance and to be healthier as a whole.
All right. So I think we'll wrap that up there. But before we go, could you give me one thing that I could improve on with this podcast? It could be anything, my questions or anything. Yeah.
I don't have so much experience with podcasts, man. I think you did a great job. I think the questions were on point. I don't think there's anything that I could immediately think of that has like any potential of improvement. I would, of course, from a social media standpoint, recycle parts of the conversation into shorts posted on different platforms. That is probably it. I think you probably do that already. But yeah, I think the podcast as a whole was pretty spot on. I don't think there's anything wrong with the whole setup. In the future, of course, maybe have people meet up in person, but of course that is very difficult with getting somebody like me on to come on with like living across the across the freaking world. But yeah, in the future, maybe have some people go on like on a physical basis. I think the production quality will be better. I think the sound quality will be higher as well. And because right now I'm just using my headphones. They're not the best in the world, but they do the job. So I think there's some technical improvements long term that could be strived towards. But I think overall, as a podcast, it was very, very solid.
Thank you very much. But yeah, I do have a physical podcast as well. So the people who are living in Bangkok, in Thailand, we do in-person podcasts at a studio. So yeah. But yeah,
Awesome.
in the future, it would be amazing to be able to like maybe, go to Sheffield and then set something up there for the athletes who are at Sheffield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's
awesome,
like
actually.
In the future.
Yeah, in the future.
Yeah. Like many years. I don't think I'm going to do that next year. Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah. So, would you like to say anything before we wrap it up?
Get stronger. Always strive to be stronger, but be happy with what you have to the audience.
All right. So thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody for watching. Like the podcast if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.